This was the biggest middle finger he could give the entire country.
We know that this administration is a vengeful one. We know this is a vengeful man.
You have no morals. He can't even stand in 20-degree weather.
Biden holds himself on this certain moral high ground, and he's setting a very dangerous precedent.
Against a very dangerous man.
Yes.
Does something happen?
The ladies of The View lose their minds over Donald Trump becoming the 47th president. I don't know if they expected the inauguration to not happen because they didn't like him, but they proceed to have a Trump deranged meltdown because of it. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, but let's start things off with Sunny Hostin having a fit that Trump's inauguration was on Martin Luther King Day. Watch.
The one thing that I did think about was the hypocrisy of having a man be inaugurated to be president on the same day as we commemorate MLK. And that same man saying that he was going to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
The irony of it.
The irony of it, because Martin Luther King not only wanted racial equality, he wanted economic equality. And that is something...
I'm sorry, I had to pause. That's how you know the crowd of The View are trained SEALs. They clapped for economic equality. That's just communism.
That people tend to miss. And I want to remind people that he said that Black Americans deserved reparations for the injustices they faced. He argued that reparations were a form of justice, in fact, not charity. And he said, quote, "It's all right to tell a man to lift himself by his own bootstraps, but it is cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps." And so in thinking about that, and Donald Trump saying things that this country would be a meritocracy, you're talking about a man who didn't become the president of the United States because of merit. He hasn't had he had no political experience whatsoever. He had no business experience. He was given everything that he has. He is a legacy hire. He is, if anything, a DEI hire, a didn't earn it hire.
First off, does she really think they were going to reschedule the inauguration because Sunny Hostin was mad about it? Second off, Sunny doesn't even realize she holds this really racist view that in 2025, Black people are still bootless. Maybe they were considered that 100 years ago. Martin Luther King fought for Black people to have an opportunity, to have a chance. And he won, and he succeeded. And all this time has passed, and if Sunny Hostin still believes that Black people are somehow hopeless and can't do it if they try, says more about how she thinks of Black people than the actual reality. And third off, how is she gonna say that Trump didn't earn it? That's just some supreme hating right there. That would be like if I said LeBron James isn't a good basketball player. I may not like the guy, but there's undeniable proof that he's a great basketball player. Donald Trump inherited a small New York portfolio. And when I say small, I mean $70 to $100 million. That's small for New York. And turned the Trump name and Trump portfolio into a multi-billion-dollar brand. He broke into media, became a cultural star, made his last name synonymous with American wealth, and then parlayed that into a presidential run with no previous experience and won against an establishment politician, Hillary Clinton. Then leaves office in disgrace. Nobody thinks he's ever gonna have a chance again, and goes on the most epic comeback in political history to win again. Like the man or hate the man, you cannot acknowledge his greatness. But Sunny continues on her racist rant and starts to demonize the Black performers at Trump's inauguration. Watch.
The other thing that I wanted to talk about that a lot of people are talking about is that there are these Black performers. You mentioned that there were entertainers at the inauguration. There are these Black performers that were performing for Snoop Dogg, Nelly, a couple of others. And I saw Keith Boykin, a friend of mine, say something that I thought was really important, and I wanted to play that clip.
If you look at Donald Trump, the man who would refuse to rent to Black people in the 1970s, who tried to lead a lynch mob against 5 Black and brown kids in the 1980s for the Central Park case, who refused to allow Black casino workers to have a prominent place in his casinos in Atlantic City in the 1990s, who spent 5.5 years lying about Barack Obama's birth certificate in the 2000s, who came into office and then attacked Black people like Colin Kaepernick, who attacked Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay Moss for simply doing their jobs as Fulton County election workers. You dishonor those people when you go and perform for this man who has done nothing but dishonor black people.
So, you know, for me, even though I didn't watch any of the balls or anything, I think what Keith said is so important for us to remember, that this is who Donald Trump is.
These are the shame tactics that did not work for the Democrats in the election, but they're also the same shame tactics that black Democrats use to shame any black person who doesn't want to fall in line with the party. They will try to paint you as some sort of race traitor, Uncle Tom, against your own people. Anytime a black person stands up and says, I can achieve greatness on my own, I don't need any race's permission to be successful. I will not quit in the face of hardship or challenges. This is the greatest country on earth, and I have the opportunity to make something big out of myself, and I'm gonna do it. They always demonize that person. They want them to have a collective victim mindset where they lock themselves in a cage and never even allow themselves to flourish. And that mindset is being forced upon them by the Democrat Party. Why would black people want to support a party whose message to them is, you're black, so that means you can't do shit? Now, Alyssa gets to cooking when she tells the panel that, unfortunately, the Trump deranged era is over. Watch.
I was watching and thinking it's time to retire the phrase normalizing Donald Trump. Donald Trump is normalized, whether you like it or not. 75 million people voted for him. He is now as much a part of American history as George Bush, Barack Obama, and any other two-term president. And I was shocked by the imagery of, he left 4 years ago in disgrace. He left, barely anyone showed up when he announced his re-election 2 years ago. And now he came back to D.C. like a conquering king. He had the biggest titans of industry there. He had celebrities, he had fashion designers, he had Democrats and every former president there. And I think that it's a moment to take note of why he won and the reasons that he did, but also Democrats are not a footnote in this. They had 4 years to beat him. They had the chance to make a case against him. 4 years ago, they had the White House, the House, the Senate, and Silicon Valley. Now they have none of those above.
She's right. The era of this Trump deranged hypocrisy is over. And we're going to get into that in a second when I show you the View reacting to Trump pardoning the January 6thers. But this whole strategy of Trump bad, Trump scary, Trump racist clearly isn't working, so you might as well hang it up. At this point, it's so obvious to everybody that the Democrats have no respect for the rule of law, the Constitution, the norms, or the institutions. So all that Trump bad, he's gonna do this, he's gonna attack this, weaponize this, it's not working anymore. Everybody's in agreement. Okay, we're gonna sit back, and if he does some crazy stuff, let's call it out. But at this point, the Democrats just look like the crazy homeless person on the street yelling about the end of the world. Now let's get into them reacting about these last-minute Biden pardons and also the January 6th pardons. Alyssa goes in by saying that what Biden did, pardoning his immediate family at the very last second, was super disgraceful.
Sure. I think it was prudent that Joe Biden preemptively pardoned people like Dr. Fauci and Mark Milley, who are political targets for Donald Trump. He has expressed that. I was floored that Joe Biden pardoned his whole family, and let me tell you why. He's either, the most charitable interpretation is the Titanic is sinking, I've got a life raft for my family, but anyone else who challenged Trump, you better swim or you're drowning. That's my most charitable interpretation. And finally, he didn't do anything to protect people who testified against Donald Trump unless they happen to be wrapped up with the police officers. And it sets a very dangerous precedent. Now Donald Trump can basically advise staff and his family to do anything unlawful and then just issue a blanket pardon when he leaves office. I think it was disgraceful and it's going to harm his legacy.
I think comparing Biden's pardons to Trump's is like comparing apples to Volkswagens.
Seems really similar to Jared Kushner.
It does not seem similar to me because Joe Biden's family and the people he pardoned in the January 6th committee have not actually committed crimes. He is trying to prevent them from spending the rest of their lives fighting the government, which is no easy feat.
Anna Navarro saying, no, Biden's pardons were better because everybody was innocent, is the exact opposite way that 99% of people feel about this. That is why we're mad about it, because they were innocent. They hadn't been convicted of any crime. You blanket pardoning people who were not even in the spotlight shows that you were up to some shady stuff and you don't care about how your legacy is looked. You're just gonna give your family complete coverage on the way out. Most pardons are when people are guilty, so Trump using it on guilty people doesn't make it out of the norm. It makes it the appropriate use for a pardon. I mean, these ladies, they're so delusional. Now, of course, as expected, Sunny Hostin comes out of nowhere, showing her overwhelming support for Biden's preemptive blanket pardons as well. Watch.
Just wanted to put a quick button on it because I was not offended by Biden pardoning his family because I think, just like Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you or tells you who they are, believe them the first time.
Right.
We've already had a Trump presidency. We know that this administration is a vengeful one. We know this is a vengeful man. And if I can protect me and mine, I would do that. And so I think we need to show Joe Biden some grace.
My fear is the
Okay,
precedent
that's all.
it's set because I think Biden holds himself on this certain moral high ground and he's setting a very dangerous precedent.
Against
that's
a
gonna
very
allow,
dangerous man.
Yes, that's going to allow that man to basically give blanket pardons to anyone who chooses
But he
to
would
commit
do it
crimes.
anyway. He would do it anyway.
But now
Look at her psychotic face at the end. He was gonna do it anyway. Like, imagine justifying in your head that upending every single norm in American government, in American society, because you thought he was gonna do it anyway. Of course, she's not offended by the pardons because she doesn't believe in the rule of law. I'm sure she would love a pardon for her RICO case indicted husband. She only cares about the rule of law being applied, and obviously applied unfairly, when it's somebody who politically disagrees with her. And what Alyssa said at the end was right too. You guys gave Trump literally the green light by giving him a ton of historical precedent to justify anything he wants to do. But the last thing I'm going to show you is Sarah Haynes, who ends with a ridiculous opinion that Donald Trump was disgraceful because he didn't thank Joe Biden for anything on the way out.
I was really disappointed, not surprised, just to be clear, but disappointed that there wasn't one kind thing to say about the outgoing administration. Because
Au
even
contraire, he was merciless to the outgoing.
That's
what
my
she's-
point.
that's what she's
That's my
saying. There
point.
wasn't one
Even
kind
if you
thing.
are, even if you find it really hard, there could have been. They spent the morning together. They had a welcome tea. The President Biden and Vice President Harris did everything we all criticized Donald Trump throughout the door. They did all the traditions of handing off the baton. And he couldn't even muster up one small thing to say thank you for kindly welcoming us back or something. It was a kind of a gut punch of sorts.
Well, that's not who he is, right? He's not a statesman.
I'm sorry, but you're just grasping for straws if you're trying to get outraged over something like that. Why in the world would he compliment Biden for anything? Biden, in the middle of the night, hours before leaving, just sneakily pardons everybody close to him. Doesn't do a press conference, doesn't announce it, just proves one last time out the door that he is a shady, sneaky, corrupt old man. He spent the last 4 years trying to get Donald Trump thrown in prison. He crushed the average person with inflation. He wreaked havoc in the country by opening the southern border. He allowed U.S. service members to die in Afghanistan. He allowed 2 new wars to start under his watch. He gave billions of dollars to foreign wars and illegal immigrants while the American citizens were struggling, and Trump was supposed to thank him. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video, and I will see you guys in the next one.